passports and partnerships, let's explore Southwest Nova Scotia to the world and more. Student voices bright and true, a global journey just for you.
Welcome back to another episode of Passports and Partnerships, where we're sharing the Tri-County International Student Story. Today, I am happy to welcome the Lesser family. Derek and Francine, welcome and thank you for agreeing to join us here today.
Thank you.
When I think of the international student program in the Tri-Counties, I think many and most people would think of both of you. Your name is synonymous with our program. So can you kind of share what your experiences has been with the international student program and how you started?
So we started trying to think. We had a student from Colombia, a short-term student, a girl in junior high, like at Maple Grove. And we did it for 1 month. And our daughter, Janelle, actually gave up her room and slept on the couch for the month because she wanted to have a host sister.
Right.
And then after that, Janelle shortly after that, ended up moving out. And then we continued to host. And we moved from 1 month to half a year and a year in some cases. Yeah, it's been an amazing experience.
Okay. How many students would you say you've hosted over the years?
I think we're on 55 right now.
Okay. There has got to be reasons why you host 55 students. So what has it meant to you, your family, and having all of these students come join you and be part of the Lessers?
So I think looking back at why the program started, to bring culture into our community. And now, with immigration, we have a lot of culture in our community. But for many years, we didn't. And this was a way for our kids to experience a different culture and learn about how people act and react in different cultures. We wanted our kids to realize that friendships can last forever, but you don't always have to live with those people.
Right.
So it's always difficult when the end of the semester comes and the student, or the end of their time comes and they're flying back. And we always say, we'll see you in a bit, because we hope that we'll either visit them or they'll visit us. Yeah. But our kids learned at an early age that it's not the end of the world when somebody leaves you for a little bit, because you can always go visit them
And in a media-connected world, it makes that connection more accessible for everyone. It's been when we were in high school in the 80s, this would have been a pen pal situation, or you would have had to finance a long-distance phone call to Thailand to reconnect with someone, right? Francine, I'm curious. You've worn many hats here, right? And with our students, they talk around what an amazing experience you're able to provide them at Yarmouth High in regards to that of a homestay coordinator. Can you just share from your experience what really makes a rich experience for students from a host mother's perspective, and then some of the things you try to do as a homestay coordinator to make sure those matches are spot on?
So one of the things that we actually try to do in our home is actually push the students outside of their comfort. So if there's something they think they don't want to do, we say, you need to go. You need to try it. If you don't like it, that's okay, we'll accept it. But you're here to make memories. I try to make sure that their whole experience here, whether it's a little experience or a big experience, is very fun. For my job, it is amazing that I get to experience their first.
Right.
The first snow is really exciting. It's life-changing for them because that's what they come for. So I'm very fortunate that I get all of the first.
Right.
So for me, my daughters and son are grown, and I cannot smother them, but I now can smother the 50 students at Yarmouth High and share a part of their life.
Yeah. Smother is also code for unconditional love, right?
Yes.
Derek, you're certainly an ambassador for our area in many ways, being an elected council member for town council. From your experience, sometimes when we live in Yarmouth and have for decades, like we have, we begin to take things for granted. However, when you see that from someone coming into our area, either as an international student like we're speaking to here, or a newcomer to our area, certainly from their lens, we've got so many things that kind of are like, oh yeah, that is kind of unique and special. Can you share a little bit of that experience from your perspective?
Yeah. So I talk a lot at council about the international student program and what internationals see and value in our community.
Right.
And it's so different than if we're brought up here, we're always looking at, we've talked for years about like, can we build an aquarium or a theme park or something here that will attract, Americans or whatever. And the reality is they have all that on the Eastern Seaboard. What we have here is a slow paced life. It's quiet, lots of nature. They can see the stars at night, which is a lot. A lot of them have never seen stars because they're in big cities. We don't have a lot of pollution. Believe it or not, one of the favorite things that our students talk about is the wildlife in town, which I know is a controversial issue for town council with, the deer being around.
Still don't feed the deer.
Yeah, but they do love seeing the deer around. I think it's very unique that, we live in a community, we can share the same space.
Francine, as both a host mom and as a homestay coordinator, can you just share kind of the importance of trying to find a right match for all of your families and for your own family?
So what I think is very important to select a student for a home is that I read all of the profiles that come out.
I'm going to ask, what's a profile? If I've never been part of that program and I've never been a host, what would a profile kind of include?
So a profile includes the student's interest, everything from even the parent's occupation, if a student has an allergy, if a student has a food preference, their hobbies and their likes. So I read through them to try to match what our host families offer. So an example would be last semester, Derek and I hosted Girls That Swim. Because we can accommodate swimmers, we live in the town. Their profiles were very similar, and that's why we matched them. The three ended up being best friends, and they swam several days a week because we could offer that. We have a family that on one of the profiles, the girl she was in Girl Guides. We have a Girl Guide leader.
Yeah.
So we matched that profile with that family, and they will be forever family members. So in a profile, I try to match what an interest is, what a hobby is, and what a family offers for a student.
What happens if the match doesn't kind of initially work or doesn't seem to initially work?
So what we then do is then we find a family that matches with that student. That does not mean there's anything wrong with the family or with the student. It means we just need to rearrange things.
That's really important to know, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got great families, we've got great students, and sometimes we think based on the profiles it's going to work, but sometimes it just doesn't. So it's really important that we want to make sure you as host families and all of our host families have a great experience. Likewise with the students. Let's talk about food. If you've had 50-some students, right, you've probably been introduced to a lot of food. Are there any that stand out as some of your favorite types of foods that you hadn't had before? Or thinking of those students and their response to some of the Canadian foods that you shared?
I do believe we do introduce Canadian foods, but I also believe a little bit of comfort food
Absolutely
doesn't hurt someone. So if you have a student that has grown up for 17 years that's eaten rice for breakfast, it's okay to serve them rice.
Absolutely.
And just those things to share different cultures and food. Yeah. We really do accommodate lots of food. So we do all different diets at the same time.
Yeah, so one thing that we discovered is we know the countries that like spicy food.
Right.
And we've had, in our house, we've had like spicy food challenges. I like spicy food, I thought. I like Frank's hot sauce. But the spicy food that we're talking about in some of these countries, like the Vietnamese students that we've had that like spicy, it's a whole different level of spice.
It is. Right now, if there's someone watching this podcast and weren't sure about what the International Student Program is, and they're thinking, I'm not sure I could really accommodate those different diets, what advice would you give?
Yeah, so there are families that for whatever reason will cook, very like meat and potatoes every night.
Right.
But that might not work for those students. And it's okay if that's how you cook. There's probably a match for you. My recommendation for families is get out of your comfort zone as well and try some of the recipes. Ask what they like. We've discovered all kinds of food that we had no idea even existed.
So one other thing that I'd like to add about the food is that because we are different cultures, you're going to get a student from Italy that only wants the pasta.
Right.
So as a mother or a host mother, you think they're not eating enough food. Right. But you have to realize for 17 years. They've only had pasta for lunch, and they do not need the meatballs, the meat. Right. It is not a side dish to them. It is a meal. So sometimes when you host a student, you just have to relax a little bit of what they are choosing for food.
Right.
And when they're hungry, they will tell you. So,
Francine, when you think of someone sitting here watching it for the first time and thinking, I wonder if hosting is for me, what would you suggest?
well, we started with the short term, and it flew by. We love the short term program, even though we do the longer program at any opportunity. If we have to add a short term in our home, it is really fun because it is exciting the whole time. They're very excited about everything. They're usually a little bit younger, and that's also, they're actually more excited about things. So all of the things that they see, they're excited. And even our slower pace is very, very important for them because they go to school all day. Here, it's a little bit of a vacation for them to come, but I would recommend start with the short term, and then you will be hooked for longer.
When Francine's talking around short terms, we have students that come as short as 4 weeks, and we do have a Colombian group coming this spring that will be here for 8 weeks. So there are opportunities on board and give hosting a try to see if it's the right fit for you and your family. Thinking about onboarding, potentially as a host family, what's been the most rewarding parts or most memorable parts for you as a host dad?
Well, just actually going back on the onboarding part, last 2 weeks ago, we had a volleyball practice, and we always get our international students in the program, not just at our house. They often will come and help coach because we coach little kids. Last week, we had a student from Brazil that had just arrived, and she was outside. It was super cold. So she got in the car, and a parent was a bit late coming for their kid. So I waited outside, and the parent came and says, "I'm so sorry for being late." And I said, "No, it's not a problem. It's just as long as our Brazilian student's in the car and it's warm." And she said, "Oh, you've hosted students before. I knew that." And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "I think we want to try it at some point." But she said, "I don't know if we don't like it, I don't want to be stuck with somebody." And we started talking about the short-term program. But I did say to her, like, the reward part of it is, I said, "Your daughter plays volleyball, right, and we could match you with the volleyball player."
Yeah.
Because she got really excited, and I think she'll probably end up hosting, giving it a shot. I would say the most rewarding part for me has been watching them do things that they've never done before, and also watching them continuing doing things that they've always done. So sometimes, I've watched at Yarmouth High School, we've had people that are really good at table tennis, and then they get to the school and they find out there's a table tennis club. Or we've had kids that are really good at chess, and then they come to the school and realize there's a chess club. And their reaction to that is, I think they thought they were going to come here and just do new things and not be able to continue with what they like.
Right.
But there's so many activities in our school in Nova Scotia that, a lot of students in their home country, they go to school, they eat their lunch, they go home. Often by lunchtime, they're home because they start early in the morning. But here we have, organized sports and clubs that the students really like. So I think for me, the most rewarding part is watching the student grow and, arriving, being a bit shy to when they leave, you can say anything to them, they can say anything to you. And, the fact that they're crying when they go home and they don't want to go home, I think says a lot about the program as well.
Absolutely, it does.
So one of the most rewarding things for us is that because we've hosted for a long time, we have extended children. So Derek and I have had the opportunity to see one of our students graduate law school. We've had students come home and be part of our daughter's wedding. So it is the lifetime of things that we get to experience with these children for their whole lives. So that's really, really rewarding, and they're your forever children.
Yeah, so along with that, on the lines of students coming back to visit, we had a unique experience, as Francine said, around our daughter getting married. And one of our students from Italy, how we had a really good connection with, and one of our girls from Mexico, who we had a really good connection with, they came home. The Italian boy we knew about, and the girl from Mexico wanted to surprise our daughter and show up, the day of her wedding, which was awesome as well. But the cool part of that is we were hosting 2 other students, right, and those 2 students, it was right before COVID, those 2 students got to see that you do stay connected. Yeah. And then the most interesting part of that is one of those students was Lauren, who's from Netherlands. She went home and she actually works for an agency now, sending students overseas. And at Christmas time, she came home. So she was one of the students who were there when Maria and Ricardo showed up for the wedding. Right. She got to meet them. But then she came home to visit this Christmas, and our girls got to see that. So it's interesting when kids get to see that, you know, you may be going home to live the rest of your life, but you can still stay very connected. And the other part of that as well is, like, from a culture point of view, like, we have families, like immigrant families or families that have moved into the area that are now hosting as well. So, you know, they've moved in and welcomed the Canadian lifestyle, and then now they're giving back to students to allow them to do it, which is cool because the kids get to come and see how multicultural Canada really is. But it's always interesting when our host families can also match the demographics of the students. So we have, you know, all race and cultures involved with hosting as well, which is great.
We do. And that's what Canada's all about, right?
Yeah.
Derek, Francine, thank you for sharing your story. As mentioned before, when people think of the International Student Program in the Tri-County area, certainly your names come front of mind. There's no question that your students have an amazing experience staying with both of you. Thank you for opening your hearts and homes to all of these students.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.